Hey, what's going on, fellas? We'll get started in a minute. Just kind of wait and see if more people roll in, and then I'll start with BTC, and then pop over to NQ after. Hopefully, everybody had a good weekend and a good trading week in the prior week. And yo, what's up? What's up? But yeah, I'll just wait a quick minute here, and then I'll get started. Just because it takes a second usually. Hello, hello. Some new names, some names I recognize. Gold. All right, maybe I'll look at gold after. You have to wait to the end though. I'll look at gold. I haven't charted gold up in a while, so it's gonna take me a minute here, but I don't mind. And then as for questions, just you can fire them off whenever you want, but try and leave them to the end. It's just a lot to keep up with, but I'll definitely try and get to all of them as long as they're relevant. Gold, I beg. Okay, we'll see. Can we take a look at BTC Elliott Wave macro time? So I personally don't trade Elliott Wave. That's Spencer. I'm Tyson. I don't use Elliott Wave. Spencer's the Elliott Wave guy in the team here. All right, let me just minimize this. All right, we'll get started. We'll take a look at BTC first. Let me just close this off. All right, so my kind of approach to how I trade and how I analyze things is I usually start with VWAP, and then I go to kind of what happened with profiles, TPO, composite structure. Take a look at anomalies. So I'll look at, is there poor highs, poor lows, naked point of control, where are we at in relation to all of these things, and like what are our potential kind of hypos going into the week, that kind of thing. So firstly, this chart here, this is 4 different VWAP panes. So I look at yearly value, quarterly value, monthly value, and weekly value, and I kind of just look at all of them to see what's happening or what has happened, how relevant each one of them is to the upcoming week, if they're relevant and all that kind of thing. So first thing for developing year, let's just zoom in. So just a quick kind of explanation here if you're not familiar with kind of what we do. So this is a yearly VWAP, and then this is your yearly value. So it's one standard deviation on either side of yearly VWAP, gives you kind of your developing value area. So this is developing year's value. Sorry. So really not much to say with this other than the fact that we've been holding developing year value area low for a while now. So we attempted to trade back inside. This looked pretty good. This capped, right? We came down, retested. It continues to hold, right? So there's really not much to say, right? If we were going to break in and retest value and attempt to trade up towards VWAP on the other side of value, probably would have done that. But given we're just in kind of a smaller range here, it's not really overly important. The only thing really to take away from developing your value right now is just that we're holding developing your value area low support. So price being above that, it's going to be support until something changes, right? That's all there is to take away from it. It's not going to be really important in kind of like today's prep or this week's prep. Quarterly value is about the same, but a bit different. So we have the developing quarter and we have previous quarter value, right? So previous quarter is going to be a static area. So you can see this is when the prior quarter ended. So you have value area high doesn't move, previous quarter VWAP, previous quarter value area low. Previous quarter value area low. So these levels don't move, whereas the developing value obviously will move as trading occurs, right? So again, not overly important aside from the fact that we're now below previous quarter value area low, so it's going to be overhead resistance until proven otherwise, and it's confluent with the developing quarter VWAP, right? So anywhere between this kind of 63.4 to 63.6, 63.7 region is going to be resistance, right? As for looking at the developing quarter, so I like to read kind of the condition against these levels. So I apply sort of AMT logic to all of these levels and all of these references. So if we were to look at developing quarter value here, right? So here's developing quarter value high, developing quarter VWAP, developing quarter value low. We've just been rotational within value, right? So this rotational state is going to continue until something changes, right? So we were bullish against it, right? We held above value, right? We capped upside here. We reaccepted within value. We traded down towards value low, back to value high, back to value low. So this is going to keep happening until you see a directional break to the downside, you see a directional break to the upside. It's going to continue to happen, right? And the way I kind of use these things together is such that if you look at previous quarter values, well, if price breaks above developing quarter value high, that will be bullish. And it's also confluent with the idea that we've reaccepted back within previous quarter value, right? So both those things would say that we trade higher. But not overly important to this week's prep, I don't think. Monthly value is going to be probably more applicable. So if we were to look at previous month value, right, we were bullish against the developing month, we trade up into previous month value high, we re-accept, and now we're testing the developing month value. So really, we are bearish against previous month, right? So we're just rotational within that value. So value area low is going to be support, value high is going to be resistance, right? So we're expecting more of this, just like I mentioned about the previous value. We've traded below VWAP. Okay, so we're expecting price to get here. We're anticipating that, right? But say we are able to re-accept within the developing month, right? That would now be a bullish change, and that points to higher. So developing month value is going to be much more applicable going into this week. If we're able to reclaim this value, right, that points to us trading up towards, sorry, developing month VWAP, developing month value high, right? So that's going to be an important reference going forward. Is going to be developing month value. If we're to look at weekly value, same thing. I just kind of work my way down. Is one of the things I like to do. Go to a bit of a higher time frame here. Kind of the same thing here, right? So if we were to look at previous week value, well, the current development week is going to be previous week here soon, but I'm not referring to that. So this value here, right? We open the week. Here we open, right? We trade into value low. We trade into previous week VWAP and developing week VWAP. They're overlapping here. And now we're technically bearish against the previous week, right? So we capped here, got one more spike into the same region. We retested the VWAP like 4 or 5 times. And then at this point, we're now bearish against this level. So given this kind of bearish development, so us breaking down from previous week value happened, about 3 days ago now, 3-4 days ago now, it's not going to be overly important. What is important is that we were compressing against developing week value area low. We've now traded back inside of it, right? So as long as we hold this region, right, that points to higher, right? That points towards developing week VWAP, confluent with previous week val, right? So then if we were to find acceptance above, right, then that would point towards developing week value high, et cetera, et cetera. So like I said, the kind of two important VWAPs going into this week is developing month value and developing week value, right? And you see they're kind of around the same region. So if you look at my cursor, you can see this 63 to 63.2 region, right? So as long as we're able to hold above that level, right, that would be kind of a bullish shift against those two values, which would point higher, right? Composite structure, I'll break this down and then we'll see how I came to all of this stuff here. Okay, so firstly, I have volume profiles on here. I have TPO on here, which is if you're not familiar, it's the same thing essentially, but it measures time at price, not volume at price. So if I hide these, I'll show you kind of the main values I'm working with here. Let's go like this. So and then I'll toggle. Let me just toggle these off. Toggle the rolling VWAPs off for now because they're kind of in the way. Okay, so TPO. Always use TPO on the 30-minute time frame if you're not familiar. Each block in this profile represents 30 minutes, so use the 30-minute time frame. So I'll have to change this. Anyways, here's how I kind of like to break things down with TPO. So let me just reset this. You can do this, on really any period. You can use monthly profiles, weekly profiles, daily profiles. You can break this down as much as you want. So I'm going to zoom out so all of these load. TradingView's TPO is kind of shitty, but anyways. What I like to do is I like to form what you call composites. So it's when you when you combine multiple profiles into one profile. And kind of the way you can do that, so if you're using a fixed range profile, like a fixed range volume profile, you can just click. I guess it does that, so that's not going to work. Let's go. Hold on. I'll hide these instead. Show you how I got them, because as soon as I draw, it's just going to re-add my drawings. So let's just do this. Okay. So like I'm saying, if you use a fixed range profile, you can just start and stop whenever you want to do that. With TPO, you have to merge the profiles. So my personal approach here is that I'm looking at the weekly chart here. So each one of these profiles represents a week. So what you can do is see where value overlaps between the two. Right, and that's how you merge profiles. So if we're able to look, we can see this, this profile overlaps this one deviated, this one reaccepted. So what you can do is start merging these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I think that's 11. So what you can do is you can merge all of these. So if you really look at this, right, this is one giant area of balance, right? So given kind of where we are at on the chart in regards to composite structure, this is going to be the most important profile on the chart, though it's only going to be applicable when price is at value area high, point of control, value area low, right? So given how big it is, it's not going to be overly relevant a lot of the time if you're day trading. So anyways, I'll keep merging this here. and you can continue to merge this into a large composite because value continues to overlap, right? So this day overlaps the composite. It means you can merge it, right? You can keep doing this as long as value continues to overlap with the composite, right? So I think that's 11 weeks. So what I do is you can mark these with horizontal lines, whatever you want to do. I usually use a box and I go like this. So I'd say this is 11 weeks, okay? So 11 weeks of value, right? So you can see what's been happening. So we attempted to trade above the 11-week value high. We reaccepted within value, right? We've tried to trade lower, which it has. It's been unable to trade above value high pretty much every time it's tested it now. So we're still bearish against this profile, technically, right? But there's a lot of other profiles inside of this composite, right? So upon that failure here, we've traded lower. And that's really all there is to say about this composite right now. Inside of this, though, there's another area of balance. This has just kind of been my approach so far with what Bitcoin has been doing. Overall, been rather boring, given it's just a range, but we have 1 week here. So kind of when you want to start these is when you start to see a normally distributed profile where there's balance, right? So this is a balanced profile. The following week is balanced. We get a deviation from the balance. We trade back into it, right? So starting here, you would merge these two. This one overlaps enough you could merge it, because it traded higher and then traded back inside. This one, and the developing week right now, you would also merge, given it overlaps. So I didn't count that. I think it's 6 weeks. Don't give me shit if I'm wrong on that. I think it was 6 weeks. So I would merge that as well. So you have 6 weeks of value, right? And these are the two kind of most important profiles at the chart. On this chart. From there, I'll go down to the daily, right? And there's multiple different ways you can kind of chop this up if you want to. Let me zoom in a bit. Right, and you can see profiles are composites inside of composites, right? So really what happened if we're able to find weekly open here. So the last week, right, we tried to break down. So let's look at just kind of developments based on the two big profiles that I kind of just charted up. So right, we got a breakdown from value. I retested it. We tried to trade lower. It failed. We got one more time, tries to trade up, really, gets back inside of value but fails. We get one more failed attempt lower, right? This low ends up holding. We reaccept within value. We trade up to value high. And it's just been rotational since then, right? So really just more rotation, more range, right? So you're going to expect more of that until, right, you see a breakdown from value, a retest of value, and it actually holds and it trades lower, which is what it attempted to do here and it failed. So this rotational condition is going to continue to persist. So really what we had here was price trades lower, retests it, it fails, right? And now we're just kind of compressing here, and now it looks like we've reaccepted. So if you kind of refer back to what I was mentioning before, right, here's the developing week value low, developing month value low, which was these levels, right? So like I said, if we're able to hold above this region, that would mean that we've now traded back within that 6 week composite, right, this box, which points to moves up higher, right? So it could potentially point to the full traversal back through the composite, right? So that's really my hypo. I expect more range. There's no reason to assume anything's going to change, right? This rotational condition or this range is going to persist until something changes. So yeah, next thing I like to look at usually is anomalies of profiles. So an anomaly is something such as a naked point of control, a poor high, poor low, single print, things like that. So I like to kind of mark what is relevant going into the week. So just looking at it here, there's not a whole lot that I really care about. There was a naked point of control here that got cleaned up at the low, right? We put in a pretty good low down here. We compressed. We had a nice kind of short squeeze back in here. So as long as this region holds, right, it should trade up, like I said. But that naked point of control is tapped. We have another one up here, so I would mark this off, especially given where it is in relation to the other kind of VWAP levels and the composite value high. This is going to be something important, right? Price could come back and clean up this anomaly. At the same time, it rotates towards value high, right? So I'm looking at that. And I think that's pretty much it. There's nothing really else worth marking here in regards to anomalies. There's nothing else. So going into this week, what can we actually see happen with Bitcoin? First thing, right? We have the larger 11-week profile. We have the 6-week profile. What's going to happen? Well, we either get one, given that we've been unable to trade above the 11-week value area high, right? We are either going to cap here somewhere, right? Let's say this fails, and it truly does reaccept below, the 6-week value area low, right? That would be confirmation that, okay, we're no longer rotational within this value. We're breaking down from it. And in that case, we now lean on the idea that we're rotational within the 11-week profile, and it's likely we trade down to the 11-week value area low, right? And maybe we clean up some of these lows, fill in this imbalance, right? And either from there, we either hold this region or we're going to re-accept below, accept below, and we're going to trade lower, right? That's the kind of the bearish scenario. The bullish scenario, or the neutral scenario, I should say, is that, like I said, we put in a pretty good low here. There's a lot of pretty thick bid depth down here at the low. We're holding developing your value area low. We re-accept back inside of weekly value, monthly value, and the 6-week composite, right? 6 weeks of value, we re-accept and we trade up. And then from there, you're going to see where things overlap, right? So we have monthly VWAP. What I would do is mark off the point of control of this profile, which, let's just go like this. So the volume point of control is right at monthly VWAP, right? So you can mean revert monthly value. So at the same time, you mean revert the composite, right? So basically what I would like to do going into weekly open or tomorrow, just kind of potentially whenever this sets up, would be look to get long somewhere around this region on a retest, ideally. Target monthly VWAP and the point of control. If it's able to get above there, it's likely that we trade towards value high, right? And then from there, maybe there's a short of the naked point of control. So should we spike into there and fail, that means we're going to continue to be just rotational within value, like I just explained. The other scenario is that we finally find acceptance above this value and it trades up. But given the amount of overhead resistance here in the form of previous month values, quarterly value, etc., no reason to assume that happens. But if it does happen, right, that's how you react to it. And like I said, the bear scenario is that anywhere we kind of fail around here and start to trade lower, right, then we have a target down here as well. That's really all there is to say about Bitcoin. Right. Okay. Okay. Give me a minute here. Okay. Now let's look at NQ. So that's kind of where I'm at with Bitcoin. I will get back to questions and stuff like that at the end. Let's look at NQ, and then I'll go from there. Actually, start with VWAP as well. It's probably easier. Keep the same theme going. So, developing your value on VWAP. Go to a bit of a lower time frame. Just disregard the electronic trading hours thing. It doesn't really matter. So, there was some really good reads here. This was a very, very clean short. This stuff I've been sending kind of within the server and whatnot for a while, this kind of whole region. But anyways, we traded basically into developing your VWAP. We stopped the move through developing your value towards value low, been able to trade up, and we're now back above developing your value low, held as support, right? So we're now bullish against developing your value. It's not overly important right now, given this happened back about 10 days ago now, I think. Yeah. This retest was 10 days ago, so it's not really important going into the week. So nothing I really care about here. Quarterly value, let's see. We're bullish against the developing quarter value high, so we we were bearish. Sorry, we were bearish against it. We accepted back inside of value. We flipped previous quarter VWAP. We built this kind of wedge, right? We traded out of it. So now we are, given that we're above the developing quarter value high, this is going to be support, and we're approaching previous quarter value high. So overhead resistance, right, and support below. As for monthly value, same thing, right? Very, very similar read. So previous month value, again, we were able to flip that. So if we look at kind of the open down here, we're at the previous month value area low. We're bearish against developing month. We trade up into previous month value high. And then, you know, given this kind of rotational state against previous month value, we try to trade lower, but developing month VWAP stops that. Same thing, you kind of build up this wedge, and at the same time, it flips previous month value high to support. We trade up, and now we're holding above developing month value high. So really, it looks really good. So we're bullish against previous month and against the developing month value. Weekly, take a look. Weekly, about the same, right? Same thing. We're you know, we kind of trickled inside, but you know, it filled this imbalance and it's trading up. Going forward, we have what's soon to be previous week VWAP confluent with what will be prior week value area high. So this is going to be significant support should it trade lower, right? So I mean, overall, it looks good. Composites. So there's a couple on here. I don't want to take too long on this. So this is the low we put it around a yearly VWAP, like I talked about. We re-accepted within this very large 3-month composite. So I'll just show that quickly. I don't want to keep everybody on here forever. So very, very large range, or composite on NQ. I'm going to zoom way out to get this on there, right? So this kind of value, right? So we traded into value low, traded up, broke down, retested it, traded below, re-accepted, and now prices traded up to value high, right? So really, the most important part is, one, pay attention where the point of control is, which is marked. Secondly, should this kind of price action or this area of balance above the 3-month value high fail, right? It's likely this is a failed auction and we're still rotational, and in that case, you expect more of the same, right? Like likely we trade into this region or the point of control, etc. You know what I mean? It's a pretty significant failure should it not amount to a trend if we accept above this value. Next thing, if I can delete this, weekly profiles. You have a couple other useful ones on here as well. So we have a 4-week composite here as well. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks overlapping value, which is marked off here. And we just broke out from that value. So most of last week was spent balancing, right? We reaccepted within this 4 weeks of value. And in that case, you expect this low to hold, and we should trade up to value high. It didn't do so as smoothly as you'd probably like to. It built up more balance, which is fine. That just gives one more actionable level to use. But kind of the most recent thing is that, we try to trade higher. We're holding above the 4-week value high. So as long as that doesn't fail, it should lead to higher, right? If it does fail, when price attempts to break from value and it doesn't just lead to a trend and it starts to range, it's going to be a sign of weakness, and it's likely it reverts back within value and probably fails. So what does it actually mean going into the week? Just delete this. So, like I said, we reaccepted back within the 4 weeks of value. We traded to value high. Okay, we now retested value high, and this should lead to a trend. Should this fail anywhere around here, right? It's likely this is a failed auction, and we reaccept back within value, and we trade lower. But like I mentioned before, there's a ton of overlap here in the form of. Let me just zoom in the form of quarterly value high, weekly VWAP, previous week value high, and it's confluent with the prior 2 weeks of value. Right, so if I reset this area of balance last week, we're still bullish against this. So even technically, if we failed here, right, as long as we don't reaccept within this value and this holds, it's hard to argue that you're not bullish, right? So how do you actually approach this going into the week? A couple of different ways. It really depends on the open, right? So as long as we hold this level, right, or even this region. So if we spike into this level, as long as we don't accept back within this 2-week value, right, then in that case, we can assume that it's going to trade higher. So this would have been a good long to take last week. So should it trade higher, right, the next thing you can look at is this older 4-day profile, which is here, right? So if we're able to accept into this value, right, that would be bullish. Aside from that, right, as long as this holds, bullish. As long as this holds, bullish. If price loses this level and it reaccepts within value, right, then you can confidently say that, okay, if we kind of work our way back with what I was talking about before, it's clear that we failed above this 4-week composite, right? So then you expect to move to the 4-week val, which is down here. Or should we break down from that value, you can say that maybe we get the 3-month value area low, right, which was the very large composite back from here, right? So that's kind of how I would play this. So actual trade setups going into the week, I would say you have, one, there was a good long Friday, but obviously it's gone now, it's decayed. I would be looking for a spike into this region, right? It needs to be you need to be reactionary. You need to have discretion around this. You don't just press buy. Is there a spike into this region? There might be a long, right? And of course, if it fails or it doesn't, momentum isn't in your favor, you'd probably scratch it and look for a short back within this value. The next way I would look to play this, should it trade higher, is acceptance back within the 4-day composite, which is this area, okay? And you can get long there. That's the easiest way to get long here. I think if that's the case and it accepts above kind of 30.4, it's likely we get new highs on NQ, would be my take. One more scenario I want to talk about here. I mentioned this, I think, a couple weeks ago in Discord maybe, but there's a naked point of control here, right? I talk about anomalies and whatnot. I remember there's a naked point of control here, so this is worth marking, and it's confluent with previous quarter value high and the 4-day value area low, right? So a similar scenario, which is possible, we don't know this will happen, it's just something to kind of watch for. If we go back to the VWAP chart and we look at previous quarter value, right? So we haven't traversed to previous quarter value area low. Doesn't mean we have to, right? Even if it fails up here, like I'm going to mention, it doesn't mean it has to get here. But the point is, this is going to be overhead resistance, right? So should we spike into that point of control, start to balance, kind of locally break down and retest the balance, it's likely that's going to be a failed auction, and that's going to be something that's going to be a bearish development, and that's something you need to be aware of, right? So if we trade up into this naked point of control, okay, and get something like this, and then flip that kind of balance and previous quarter value high, it's likely that this is a failed auction, and it's much more likely that we just revert back into value, and that would be a very bearish development. That's kind of the only bearish scenario I'm seeing right now. Yeah, and that's pretty much NQ. I think what I can do is probably take a look at gold as well. Seems like he trades failed auction. I trade many different things. I don't find any full teaching video on YouTube. There's lots of videos on our YouTube. There's a lot more in the Discord as well. Okay. As for trade setups, like I said, I'm explaining many different ways to trade against value, right? I just glanced at the chat. I explained that if we see a failed auction, this is a way you can position on a failed auction, right? Failing at the kind of local balance here, that's one way to do it. That's a lower grade trade. Whereas if you just re-accept back within value after this happens, this is a better trade to take, right? That's a trade to take. You could take a trade here. I'm saying that these are kind of your contextual setups to take off of value, right? This is how I trade them. So those are just possible scenarios for NQ, right? I will take a look at gold. I saw a few people say gold, and then I'll probably wrap it up and just see what there is for questions. I can look through stuff. Okay, gold. Let's reset these, and then we'll look at VWAP. Excuse me. Okay, gold. Gold looks pretty good from a VWAP perspective. It really does. So, multiple weeks of range down here, right? So we saw a breakdown from developing your value. Excuse me, traded into I think 2020. Oh, sorry, previous year value high, right? Multiple weeks of value. Ultimately ended up holding. We got this aggressive move back up, and we're now back inside of developing your value, right? So any retest of this region, this should hold this support. And if that's the case, that's a really, really strong kind of development. On a lower time frame, I'm sure there was a retest here. So that may be all it gives, right? So you could say you're bullish against developing your value for sure. Previous quarter value is the same, right? So previous quarter value area low is also confluent with that level. It's also confluent with developing quarter value highs. So anywhere in this 4270 region is going to be significant support just off of VWAP, right? Same thing. So the only thing we're bearish against here, it looks like, is we're technically bearish against a developing month, right? So we were bullish against it, we re-accepted, okay, and now we're approaching developing month value high again, right? And if you want to get even more granular, developing month VWAP is also confluent with that region, right? So that's a very significant level on gold going forward, which I assume will hold. We're bullish, kind of neutral bullish against the developing week, right? So we were bearish against it. We were bearish against it here. We re-accepted, retested it, and now we're just chopping around VWAP, right? So we either kind of hold here or we trade up to value high. So kind of neutral, but not overly important. Composite structure. This one's a mess. I haven't charted gold in a while, but I saw a few people ask me to do it, so I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do this roughly. I don't want to go and pull all these profiles back. What's important going into the week with gold? So first thing would be this 6-day profile. It's much older. It's still going to be a good level, right? Let's just break this down. So it's this area of balance here, right? Back from March 22nd, basically to here. This is a 6-day composite. This is what this gray box is, okay? Second thing, the 6-day point of control. So price is re-accepted back within that value, but it's been unable to trade through the point of control. So normally when price accepts within a composite, you expect kind of the full move through value towards here. The one kind of interruption to that rule is if it rejects the point of control, right? So that's what's happened so far. Since doing that, it's built up more local balance here, okay? So here's how I would approach this personally. Let's go to single days here, right? So what has happened? Well, here's kind of the re-acceptance. We trade up into the point of control. We get this aggressive move up, good excess, a good kind of tail at the high on the, was it Wednesday? Yeah, on Wednesday, right? And we're still holding below this value. We traded below, we re-accepted. So what we have here really is just kind of a larger range. So my approach to this would be that the way to get long here easily above value is merge these days into a larger composite, so where value overlaps. So we have this day doesn't overlap, but this day does. So if you look at this, this is just a 3-day composite. So you can merge this into 3 days of value, right? So that's how I would approach this. So what are the actual trade setups? One, price is now attempting to trade back inside. It's kind of retesting the edge. So what I would do is, should it break out from this value, right? That's confluent with the idea that we've now broken above the 6-day point of control, and we can probably expect the 6-day value area high, which is up here. There's also an older 13-day profile, so I would just be wary around this level. So if we accept above that value too, maybe we trade up to the 13-day POC and so on and so forth, right? Previous quarter VWAPs to targets. You can see where there's lots of overlap. That would be kind of the bullish scenario here. A bearish scenario, this would be a lower grade setup in my opinion, would be that we spike into the POC and the 3-day value area high once more and fail, and we're still just rotational within this value, right? That would be a lower grade setup, and that means this range is going to persist longer. That's how I would look to get short. I wouldn't want to get short down here, I don't think, given this is just going to be support. The next thing, this would technically be a lower grade setup, but this is more so based off of kind of the VWAP stuff I mentioned before, right? So all of the overlap around that 42, 60, 70 kind of region would be this kind of area of balance here. So you have, you know, the top part of this prior day, this day, and this day. So what you could do is, I mean, you could pull a volume profile over it if you wanted to. You get a similar value, or if you're on TPO, you can kind of just split these up. So you have this chunk here with this day, and then you could split this one as well. And then you get kind of like, what's that, 1.5 days, give or take, I guess you could say. So you could label it something like that. And this area of balance, likely probably the point of control, is where I would assume you're likely to see a reaction, is confluent with all of these values, right? So if we see something like this, right, and retest that region, you can see that this is really kind of the visual you're seeing, right? It's a retest of this value, right? And you can see that, you know, this points up, this value points up, right? You can see how there's just a lot of overlap here, right? So that would be kind of my scenarios on gold. So if we're able to, accept above this value, right, that's a pretty clear long. If we spike and see some kind of failure here, that's going to be a potential short as well. That's how I would trade gold myself. Maybe we retest this region one more time. That's part of why I said I don't want to be bearish here. Around weekly val and the composite val, maybe we retest that. But I would say that's, again, a lower setup because we already tried to hold this level. So if we don't, then that means we're kind of bearish against this profile now. So that's kind of my thoughts there. So yeah, guys, that's BTC, NQ, and gold. Let me just see if there's any questions I got to catch up on here. Hold on. A lot of comments. Besides BTC, what do you trade? I trade mostly crypto myself. I do trade gold a little bit. It's not really been a focus of mine lately. Mostly crypto. Kind of within the server, within premium, I look at NQ every day as well on every morning live stream. But my main focus for me personally is crypto. Besides, you trade BTC. I already commented that. Yes, bro. If I was get premium, is there more in depth? Yeah, there is. The full way of everything I just did here is explained within premium. Yeah, so that's linked in the description and Discord if you want to join that for sure. It's new for NQ. Why VWAP looks so complicated? It's really not. It just comes down to reading all of it, right? Which is kind of, again, part of our actual framework and system is how we look at all that stuff. But I get what you're saying. Been learning a lot just watching and reading the lingo. Yeah, we kind of have a way of speaking a certain kind of way with all this stuff, certainly. Using VWAP and composites too, caught longs off monthly VWAP the other day in NQ. Awesome, man. Good stuff. How do you turn on VWAP? VWAP's a tool, so if I go to indicators, you can just search VWAP. So we have our own VWAP as well. It's not free, just prefacing that. But if you're new to VWAP, just try this one here. If you want to use ours, then you can. You just have to go to our store and check it out. What's the indicator you used at the start? I think it was VWAP, I'm assuming. But it's only in premium. I'm not sure what you mean. This is TPO. This isn't our tool. This is a TradingView tool. This isn't ours, but you need TradingView Premium to use it. This is VWAP, right? Like I said, this is VWAP. This VWAP specifically is ours. The Orochi VWAP, this is ours. Yeah, and then the template itself, these 4 windows, this is a template I have in the Discord too. if that's what you're referencing. Who said that? Fruity SMR, I think said that. Anything else? What prop firm you guys on? There's a lot of us in the server. I personally don't trade prop firms anymore. Is this a new series? I'm not sure what you mean. I usually go live on YouTube every Sunday for these, and then I do it every morning in the Discord. I've just been super busy lately. Otherwise, I normally do these every Sunday. What is the QVal indicator? Oh, if you're referring to these labels, this is our indicator as well. So I'll just show you quickly. So this is our VWAP suite. This is our tool. So it has all of these labels, the actual VWAP itself. It has all of the rolling VWAPs here. So all of these as well. I guess I didn't go over these on the stream, but all of these as well. It has pretty much every single thing I use VWAP related. So it's a pretty nice tool. Can you text me when NQ would be here? That's funny. Looks like somebody was getting a little spammy in the chat. Jesus. Okay, what else? Too much analysis. If you can contextualize it, it's not. How accurate is this? Join the Discord and find out. How do you determine to take 11-week or 6-week profile? See, that's a fair question. So let me go back to that. So there's probably, like I talked about, this might be your retest right there, guys, if you remember what I said earlier, right? And it retested VWAP there. So should it trade higher, right? This could be your retest to then trade higher, possibly. As for the profile, you can mark both of them up, right? So the 11-week profile, I'm just going to remove this, but the bigger box here, this is a bigger profile. It's more significant, right? So you can trade off of both of them. They both have meaning, right? So sometimes they agree, sometimes they disagree, so you can pick one in that case. But if they say they both point down or both point up, then you can form trades off of it, right? So both of them, right? You can use both of these or any number of weeks. When it comes to merging them, you see where value overlaps. If this is more of a composite question, I think is what you're asking me now. So let me just go and show you an example. So for example, this day here, right, this single day overlaps with the following day, right? So you can merge these two, right? So now in this case, you would have a 2-day composite, 2-day profile, okay? Why don't you trade NQ? There's no specific reason. I chart NQ every single day. I just, Bitcoin and crypto is what I like to trade. There's tons of people in the Discord. There's probably more futures traders in the Discord than there is crypto. I'd say it's pretty even, but there's a ton of futures traders anyway. So I personally just don't trade it. So we have, this is mostly swing trading. No, I mean, you can apply a lot of this stuff to anything. I don't swing trade. I'm more of an intraday trader. Spencer is another guy in the team. He's a swing trader. Can you show P&L win rate average? This isn't a strategy or a model. There's no way for me to give you numbers. It's a discretionary framework on the way of trading. I just show you how to read things and you position accordingly, given all the stuff I just explained here. So there's no point in giving numbers. It's completely discretionary. It's not a model like, oh, if this and this happens, I do this regardless of what's going on. So there's no point in that. Just two completely different things. What else do we have here? Saber, does he use low volume node and high volume node? I don't normally base trades off of them. I certainly pay attention to them. My usual use case of low volume nodes and shelves and stuff like that is I like the visible range profile, which is this profile. So I pay attention to where they are and stuff like that. In isolation, I don't base trades off of them, but certainly useful. What else? There's a video on YouTube. Full framework. Can we use TPO on TradingView? Is it correct? Other tools on there for naked levels? Yeah, so I mean, you just saw me use TPO on TradingView, right? So in my opinion, it's not great. Like, it certainly works and you can totally use it. I think there's a lot better TPO out there, but if that's what you want to use, you certainly can. The biggest advantage to using TradingView's TPO is just that it's very convenient, right? So instead of going to a different platform, you can toggle it on TradingView and all of your drawings are there. Everything else is there. So it's really convenient that way. So I usually do it for my live streams and stuff, so it's really convenient. Seems like he trades failed auctions. I do sometimes. Just depends how things set up. I believe what Saber said, the free edge would be better than premium. That makes no sense. I don't know how you came to that conclusion. This video is too much analysis. We have a YouTube full of stuff if you want to learn. We have a Discord that's full of a lot more stuff if you want to learn. How did you decide to merge TPO? It's where value overlaps. Do you mostly trade off of AMT, volume profile, VWAP? Yeah, so my entire system and the way I form trades in my my narrative in hypos and my biases is based off of value, right? So it's based off of multiple values. So like I said, multiple VWAPs, multiple profiles, that kind of thing. I look and kind of see where things agree, where they disagree, that sort of thing. Let's see. Oh, there's a lot of questions in here. How necessary is level 2 data in your opinion? It's certainly useful. Like I said, of course, I guess I didn't mention. So my narrative and bias and stuff like that all comes from value and profiles and whatnot. And then I do use order flow as well, just to help read strength and weakness and entries and all that kind of stuff. So even whether it's level 2 data, whether it's TradingView data, whether it's footprint, whether it's delta, it's DOM, doesn't matter. Order flow to me is kind of a small piece of the puzzle. It's certainly very important, but without the other stuff in place, it doesn't matter. So if you wanted to, for example, trade kind of how I've explained things here, as well as use level 2 data, you certainly can do that if you want to. In the end, will I be profitable with free education? I can't answer subjective questions like that. There's no way for me to answer that. So, do you use imbalances on footprint? Sometimes, yeah. Do you need all of these analyses to become profitable? Again, this is another subjective question. I can't answer that. Or just daily composites. There's no way for me. Am I Amir? No, I'm not Amir. I'm the guy who's on Amir's TikTok a lot of the time. I'm not Amir. I'm just so confused how many VWAPs, volume profiles we need, which time frame. So, I mean, I've showed you things I like to look at. Right? I can read all of these. That's part of what our system is the ability to read all of this stuff. That's what's so different between Discord and what I put on YouTube. A lot of that, how to actually read all of this. That's your answer. Sorry, there's a lot of questions. I'm just trying to keep up with these. Is TPO and TradingView using TPO and TradingView expensive? The free is the data valid? So there's a couple of different ways you can get TPO for free. MMT, so Market Monkey Terminal, is an order flow platform for crypto. It's free. You can use TPO there. If you're trading futures, Go Charting is a website that's free for TPO. I believe it's the only one that I know of. If not, you can use Fixed Range Volume Profile as another kind of alternative. Though they're different tools, the same kind of things apply to them. Is ours a good tool to use? In isolation, no, it's not. Do I trade live? No, I don't. I send my trades and my trade ideas and my hypos and stuff like that. I don't scalp, nor do I sit on a live stream for multiple hours a day. It's just not what I do. There's just too many things I have going on. So I don't trade live in that sense. I recap all of my trades and send my entries and stuff like that, but I don't sit on a live stream, no. Yeah, moving right, do you also use delta, absorption, exhaustion? Yes, I use delta, yeah. This is cute. Yeah, what's up, bro? Does the strategy work on stocks? It's not really a strategy. It's kind of a framework for how to read things, like I said. But yes, this works on any market: stocks, equities, forex, crypto, futures. Doesn't matter. I use heat map and absorption bubble indicator, mostly observing. Oh, nice, man. Is using the free version of VWAP on TV legit and marking VWAP based on start? Yeah, that's fine for sure. But this live is about framework and your way to look at the market. But do you have a strategy? Like I said, so the way I like to trade. I like my actual mod. This is exactly how I trade. So all of my hypos here, I just explained the setups I'd be looking for, right? So if we hold this region and we retest the edge of value, I would look to get long. There's no crazy model or setup. It's a model or a strategy or something like that. That comes after a framework, right? That's something else you can develop. That's where you add supplementary things on top of your framework, right? A lot of people have that very backwards, whereas they try to... People will be like, "Oh, here's my model. Here's my strategy." Whether regardless of what it is, let's say it's I trade off of the prior session value area high if it breaks out from value. Okay, that's great, but there's way too many other things you should probably try and consider to identify what's actually going on outside of that, right? So that would be a strategy, whereas the strategy needs to come after, right? It's kind of ass backwards that way. Are you using CVD, Delta, and OI to help with entries? I use CVD a little bit. It's not a main thing I use. Delta and open interest I really like. Yeah, I use all of that stuff. All of them kind of have a time and place. You can use them together, right? There's no magical way to use one tool versus the other, that kind of thing. It's all about reading strength and weakness. And your edge with order flow, in my opinion, as long as you need to learn how to read it properly for one, but secondly, a lot of the time it comes with a lot of chart time. And then on top of that as well, um, it's not a magical tool, right? You use it to read kind of, does order flow support your trade idea? That's what I use it for. Thinking it's a magical tool is just going to lead you astray. It's not going to work. How do you enter after a rejection on value area high, val, and VWAP? So again, one of those things where, like I said, taking a trade off of one level versus the other, one tool versus the other, doesn't work that way. So again, like what I just said a minute ago, I'm going to look at order flow and stuff like that. So if order flow supports my trade idea on a retest on value area low, then I'm probably going to take the trade, right? So in this case here, right, we tried to break down from value. If we re-accept within value, right, that would be bullish, right? So if we retest the edge of value here and order flow looks favorable, whether there's trap sellers here or sellers get weak here or buyers step in here strong, all three of those scenarios would support my idea. In that case, I'd probably enter the trade, right? It's really that simple, right? What else do we have here? There's no really way to give a set win rate. Well, it's not a model, right? It's not like, you know what I mean? This is what I'm trying to explain. Some people understand what I'm saying. Other people think I'm probably scamming you or lying to you, which is fine. It's not a model. It's not like, this is price. It's not like I said, oh, if we see a break of structure and we retest a gap, I long every time. That's a model, right? That's objective, and I can say, okay, this has a 50% win rate, 1 to 2R, right? This isn't a model. I can't give you a number, right? To get a moderate to high win rate with high risk reward trading like this is very achievable. Okay, I can't give you a number. I'm being honest with you. I don't have a number for you. How many of your students join Premium with a Degrassi analysis that you do? A lot of them. What symbol works well? All of them, as long as they move. Why BTC chart? I just charted NQ and gold, both of them. How should I start on the Discord with Premium membership or any suite? So my recommendation, if you want to join, would be to watch everything on YouTube, and if you like it, join. Simple as that. So what can we use for confirmation? Again, this is just another open-ended question. There's no way for me to objectively give you an answer. You can use, again, if you're talking order flow, you look at absorption, exhaustion, you know what I mean? All of these things. Open interest, delta, footprint, heat map, book map. It doesn't matter. All of those things. You're looking for order flow to support your trade, right? So if we hold here and we trade up and I look at open interest or delta or footprint and it looks bullish, that's good for my trade because I want to get long if we accept back within this profile. That's all I'm saying. Hey, so I mark volume profile, and on different time frames, my value are high, point of control value low can sometimes change significantly. What's the best time frame to work with? I wouldn't say there's a best time frame. So for TPO, I mean, I'm usually on the 30-minute time frame. So like I said, TPO, you want to use the 30-minute. So more often than not, that's what I use, I guess. What time frames do you usually execute your trades? On TradingView, I have a separate pane here, so I have different platforms as well. This is kind of my execution pane that I have on TradingView. I use different order flow software as well, but I find the 2-minute or the 3-minute is decent just for how I trade. But again, it wouldn't apply to you. There's just too many variables, so I don't want to say you have to use this or use that. You got to find what works for you. So I use the 2-minute. I find for this chart specifically, and this has open interest on it and delta and stuff like that. I do have another completely different setup for order flow as well, but this, for what it is pretty useful. So I like using this as well. Okay. Well, what's the next move for NQ? I just charted NQ. I know you were here for it. What do you think about quant trading? I don't think much about quant trading. So it's monthly payment or one-time payment. It's a subscription. If you want to click on the link in the bio or the channel bio, I believe as well. There's a link there or in the Discord. You can ask any of that stuff. So mostly the framing you present is based on Confluent. I think you mean Confluence. It's about okay. So it's about identifying the condition relative to profiles and to VWAPs, right? See where they agree, see where they disagree, see which one's more important, see where your likely destinations are, see where things overlap, right? I know it's probably a lot to contextualize, but when you have a way of understanding it, it's not. What are the main concepts you base your trading logic on? AMT, VWAP, TPO, volume profile, all that stuff used together. What's up, Barman? I trade with TPO, VWAP, volume profile, Elliott Wave. Would that be a good foundation to the free education? Yeah, I use a lot of I don't use Elliott Wave. Spencer is the Elliott Wave guy. So there's kind of three of us that post on the YouTube, two main ones, and then so I'm Tyson. Spencer is the other guy. I think he did the last video on YouTube. He uses Elliott Wave. So anything Elliott Wave, you'd have to talk to Spencer. He's the Elliott Wave master, not me. And then Damon, as well, is the guy who's done the fishing videos. He's done a couple trading ones now, so you'll see him a lot more in the near future as well. So, wouldn't scalping with tight stop losses with your framework be very hard for beginner because of high fees? So my framework has nothing to do with fees. Fees are fees, regardless of what you're trading, right? The way I trade, I scalp all the time. If you're going to use super high leverage, it depends on how much leverage you're using, what you're trading on, what your platform is, what your prop firm is. I can't account for what your fees are. That's something you have to take into account when you trade. I can't answer that for you. Shut up, Ren. If your stop loss is 0.2, for example, you're paying almost the same as your stop loss on fees. Again, I can't answer that for you. I can't answer for your fees, right? There's no way for me to give that an answer. No way. Any other questions, guys? If not, I'll probably wrap this up. But I'll just wait here for a minute, grab a drink. 46 people, not bad. There's a lot of you guys in here. I'm glad you guys joined. Hopefully some of you guys found this useful. Like I said, if you would like to learn more of this, you can join the Discord and find out exactly how we kind of do all this stuff if you'd like to. But so do you scalp. I'm a day trader. Right, so my stuff is intraday. So I'm not scalping, 5-15-minute moves. Ideally, I do scalp. It's not my main focus. I like to trade intraday. Right, so to kind of give you a way to understand this better, I would say like my average trade is anywhere from 30 minutes to 5 or 6 hours kind of thing. Are you Amir? No, I'm not Amir. Shinobi, what are you doing, man? This is Block Shinobi from Zerv. You guys are fucking with me. Yo, I just joined the live stream. What did you cover in this video? I went over Bitcoin, NQ, and gold. If you scroll back, you can watch for sure. If you're not Amir, then who are you? My name's Tyson. If you've heard me on Amir's TikTok, it's me. You're a day trader, your stuff is intraday, and your analysis gives you like a bias on your trades. Yeah. I don't speak English, but I'm trying to learn from your videos because I need to learn volume profile. Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that, man. Good stuff. And you told the other you do scalp, but you didn't care about fees. I have no idea what you're talking about. Not a clue. All I said was I can't account for your trading fees. There's no way for me to account for your trading fees. Okay. Yeah, I already went over gold. Appreciate you. Clint, what's up, man? I think I know who you are. It's nice to see you, man. Hopefully you're doing well. Thanks, Tyson. This live was really good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Thanks for joining. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'll probably do a full write-up for this, and I'll probably post it in the Discord, too, in the free analysis channel. I'll do a kind of a full summary write-up with all the stuff that's important going into the week. So, yeah, guys, it's been real. Have a good one. Cheers.